welcome. Super excited that you are here with us. Sleep Secrets, Unlocking the Secrets of Rest, Recovery, and Reconnection. Reconnection is an interesting word, considering the challenges that we've just had behind the scenes in order to make this connection and make this event happen. You know, human beings are pretty interesting, but let me ask you a question. Has technology ever failed you in the past? I want to ask you the question, why does that happen? Why do things crash? Why do things not always work when it comes down to technology? I think the answer is quite simple. We created it as human beings, and we don't work perfectly, but we can work better. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to sleep secrets. Super excited that you are here. Get involved. There is a chat feature here. So if you have any questions or anything you want to share, let us know. Let us know where you are in the world to start off with. In this 1 hour of this special Trigger Talk, which is titled, as I mentioned, Sleep Secrets, Unlocking the Secrets of Rest, Recovery, and Reconnection. This is hosted by myself, and I'm delighted that in a few minutes I'm going to be introducing our special guest, Dr. Lindsay Browning, who is a leading sleep expert, psychologist, neuroscientist, and best-selling author. She told me she could talk about sleep for days. Maybe she could actually even talk me to sleep, because sometimes I need help getting to sleep. So let me just set up a few things that are going to be going on. We'll be here for about 45 minutes. We're going to really dive into discovering the transformative power of sleep in this enlightening webinar. We're going to do a deep dive into the science of sleep. We're going to help you have a much bigger and better understanding of the impact that sleep has on physical and mental and emotional health. We're going to demystify some of those common myths and just equip you to have better quality sleep. So my name is Pete Cohen. I'm a best-selling author. I am a speaker. I've spoken all over the world on behavior. And my real theme is around our relationship to our future self and our ability or our need to stop, to actually stop. We're always on, being on, and I think everybody really knows the power of stopping to appreciate, stopping to listen, stopping to feel grateful. And we're asking you to stop today and take in some information that could seriously change your life. So let's just set up a few things. First off, massive shout out to TriggerHub. Trigger Talks, this is a series of virtual events. I've been fortunate enough to be hosting these for some time now. Always interesting when we get some experts on and we dive into some really powerful and important topics around mental health. What is TriggerHub? What TriggerHub are doing is really revolutionary, pioneering in this space of mental health, mental well-being. It's a gateway to a pioneering approach for mental health and recovery, support and well-being, catering to the workplace, to students and the leaders of tomorrow, harnessing the power of lived experience and bibliotherapy, here to guide you through mental health imbalances, uncertainty, connecting to a treasure trove of wisdom. There's a bit of a tongue twister there. Treasure trove of wisdom from people that have walked a similar path. TriggerHub is all about fueling people with confidence, igniting hope, and slashing the onset time for embarking on recovery. For a lot of people, it takes time to get back on that road if they're challenged in some way, shape, or form. But TriggerHub has really set itself out there to minimize that time and to get people back to their best as soon as possible. So we're here to light your way to recovery and beyond. And just very briefly, we just want to mention something that's going on with TriggerHub, which I think is hugely exciting. It's a partnership with the charity SureMind, and they're the official mental health partners to Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, the Sheffield Steelers, the ice hockey team, and the Sheffield Sharks basketball team. And for those of you that don't know, TriggerHub's founder, Adam Shaw, is Sheffield born and bred. So obviously he was delighted to be able to do something in his hometown, harnessing the power of unity and sport to create mental health and the impact of action. So should we get stuck in? If you're ready, just say you're ready. I'll just take a pause there for a moment. You can tell I've got a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. And this is a subject I'm deeply passionate about because I've had my challenges with sleep. I've worked with world and Olympic champions in sport. I've coached and mentors, CEOs. And I can tell you, when their sleep isn't on, they're not on. They're not on at their best. And I've had challenges in my life. I've had some major trauma in my life over recent months, and that has impacted the quality of my sleep, which has then impacted through all the other areas of my life. So I'm looking to see what I can learn. I've got to know Dr. Lindsay a little bit over the last week or so, and it's been really interesting because she really is at the forefront of this area that I think is just going to explode in terms of the real measures of health moving forwards will be about recovery. It won't be necessarily how fit you are, it's how able you are and equipped you are to recover. So Dr. Lindsay is a leading sleep expert, psychologist, neuroscientist, best-selling author. She founded Trouble Sleeping in 2006 to help individuals get better sleep through CBT. And she works with companies in the public sector to advise on issues such as better sleep during shift work and improving well-being. She can be found on all social media channels at Dr. Browning Sleep. She's got 2 degrees in neuroscience and psychology, a doctorate from the University of Oxford, which where she studied insomnia, and her book Navigating Sleeplessness that can be found from TriggerHub.org. This was first published in 2021, which is a great first step for anyone who wants to learn about treating poor sleep. So let's get on with it. Let's do this. There she is.
Hi.
How are you? Look, the first thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you get into this area? What was it that made you decide to become a sleep expert?
Sure. Well, I've always been a good sleeper, actually. And lots of people think that maybe I've come from a background of being a poor sleeper, but I've always been a great sleeper. It's just that I studied psychology and then a degree in neuroscience, and sleep is one of those things that's a bit like the bottom of the ocean or deep space. It's something we don't really understand fully why we do it or how it works. So it was just such an interesting thing to study. And I was at Oxford, and my doctorate was spending 3 years researching insomnia. I stuck electrodes on people's head to measure their sleep waves while they were asleep, to see what was going on. And from that point, I've been just passionate about helping people to improve their sleep, because I graduated in 2006, and at that time sleep was still seen as an inconvenience. It was seen as something that you need to get as little sleep as possible so you could get stuff done. So many people were advocating, I only need 4 hours sleep because then I can spend 20 hours of the day being productive. Sounds great, but the reality is it's not that good. It's like you can survive just eating junk food. Doesn't mean you're going to thrive, and sleep's the same. We need to prioritize it, get enough good quality sleep in order to thrive. So I'm just passionate ever since then about specifically helping people improve their sleep, whether that's individuals or working with organizations and that kind of thing.
Well, first off, I've said this to you before, but I say it again, I want to genuinely thank you for the work that you do, because when you help people sleep better, everything changes. That whole thing, there's nothing better than a good night's sleep. And there's so much in what you said that we could dive into, but I want to really talk about this for a moment, because we've also spoken about this, and I think this is really essential. You could give loads of advice and we could talk about the science and the research. And when we talked for the first time last week, you said something really interesting. It's like, all that stuff is really nice, but what's going on behind the scenes? What's really going on in terms of how people are feeling? And I mentioned just before I introduced you that, my wife passed away not long ago, and it's been extremely traumatic, which I'm sure anyone who's ever lost anyone would know. And I was observing myself and how that affected my sleep, major trauma. But I think, if you look at how people are feeling right now in society today, there's no wonder that people are struggling to sleep because of how they're feeling. What are you seeing in the workplace in terms of how a lot of people are feeling in this current climate that we find ourselves in?
Well, I think that the movement towards understanding that sleep's important is a great one. It really is. But it's a double-edged sword, because the more you tell people how important it is to sleep well, then if they're not sleeping well, they'll start to worry about it. And of course, when COVID happened and the entire world changed, and since then we've had bad thing after bad thing. We've got Ukraine war, we've got the financial crisis, we've got climate change, fires everywhere. It's just stress after stress after stress. So people have stresses in their individual lives, and then they're stressed about, oh my goodness, I know I need to sleep well or else I won't be healthy.
Yeah.
It just results in people not being able to sleep because they're so stressed about it. So yeah, it's really important to unpick that and get people to understand that, yes, sleep is important, absolutely. But
Well,
here's how we do it without being too stressed about it.
yes, thank you for saying that. With everything that Trigger does is about, let's just be honest, let's just be really real with what's actually going on. And what I've observed in corporations is often people don't want to share their weaknesses. They don't want to let anyone know that there's a problem. We have to create environments where we can have real open and honest conversations for people to be able to say, you know what, I am having issues sleeping, because if you don't identify, if you don't share that there is an issue, it's not something that's just going to get better on its own, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but what I love about what you do, and you've spoken a little bit about this, is that this is something everybody, or pretty much everyone, can actually do something about, right?
absolutely. People think, oh, I'm just a poor sleeper, or I've always been a poor sleeper. My parents were poor sleepers. There's nothing I can do about it. But it's not true. There are so many things you can do to improve your sleep, starting from sort of good sleep hygiene that I'm sure we'll touch on,
Yeah.
to other things and very different approaches that are scientifically proven to really, really improve people's sleep. So yeah, I deal with people all the time who've had chronic insomnia for 40 plus years,
Yeah.
and they thought they could never improve it, and they can. By making some changes, going through a process of CBTI, which we mentioned, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, people can make changes that genuinely fix their sleep permanently, which is amazing.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, because I said CBT and you said CBTI. So thank you for correcting me on that, because I made a mistake there. It's fascinating when insomnia, when I've heard people, I had some clients who said, I'm an insomniac, and they would constantly tell themselves that I'm a bad sleeper. And, what you think about, you feel about, and these are things that we need to wake up at. What is the language that we are saying and how that might be affecting us? But when you talk about sleep hygiene, what does that actually mean?
Sure. So there's sort of two parts to sleep, really. So sleep hygiene, generally speaking, is taken to mean what you do before bed and at bed to make sure that you're doing the right things to sleep well. And we can equate it to, nutrition. We all know the right kinds of things we should do to be healthy food wise. Same with sleep. So good sleep hygiene is the kind of stuff you'll read about in magazines and newspapers everywhere at the moment. So having a wind down time before bed, avoiding screens before close to bedtime, watching what caffeine your caffeine intake, your alcohol intake, and then when you get to bed, what sort of time should you go to bed? When should you get up? All of these things, and they're all really important. I love to sort of discuss in a bit more detail about why certain parts of these things are good, because people hear the wind down time. Yeah, I know that. But why? What does that actually mean? Why is it important? And how can we do it to improve? And that's sort of good sleep hygiene. But then second to that is CBTI. So good sleep hygiene is like healthy eating and exercise that we all know everyone should do. We know we should exercise regularly and eat 5 fruit and veg a day. But if you broke your leg, for example, good nutrition and exercise aren't the solution to your broken leg. And actually, exercising on a broken leg is probably going to make it much worse.
Yeah.
And CBTI is the equivalent of a cast on your broken leg. So good sleep hygiene is general nutrition and exercise, how to be healthy. CBTI is how to fix someone's sleep if it's broken. And those are very different things. So for normal people living normally, good sleep hygiene is a great place to start. If your sleep is broken, you're an insomniac, you're really stressed about your sleep, good sleep hygiene isn't going to touch the sides. You need to have a different intervention, a different approach to fix your sleep. And that's where this comes in.
So in the chat, let us know how would you rate yourself as a sleeper? What sort of quality of sleep do you actually get? Let us know. Get involved in this conversation, because we can all work together. I was going to say we can all sleep together, but that's not what I mean. We could all work at improving our sleep. What impact does it actually have when people start? Because I used to say that myself for years. Oh, I can get by on 5 or 6 hours, and maybe when I was younger, I could get away with it. But the research actually is really interesting, because it's, the majority of people need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. Please tell us that, but also tell us, what impact does it have when people start to get better sleep? What do you see?
So getting enough sleep, we can survive on 4 or 5 hours, absolutely. And if we couldn't, then every new parent on the planet would be in big trouble, basically. So as human beings, we are designed to be able to cope with small amounts of sleep. But the importance is you're coping, you're not thriving. And if we think about sleep, like it's when our brain and our body, it rests and repairs. And it does all the jobs behind the scenes that we need. So it regulates our hormone production, our insulin production. It repairs our heart. It produces our immune system. It does, I could talk to you for hours about it. It does so many things that are so important. And in the short term, and I talk about having a baby in the short term, you get a year or two, and you've got a young child of pretty poor sleep. Your brain can survive without doing all of those processes brilliantly. However, if you're talking about years and years and years of not sleeping enough, then there's got to be a payback. Like if we're stressed, if I'm stressed, you're stressed, I don't have time to clean my bathroom. And that's okay in the short term, leave it for a week. It's not great. Leave it for 2 weeks, a month, getting a bit icky. What about 6 months? What about a year?
Yeah.
And the point is, if we don't sleep enough, our brain has to choose which processes are most important. And just like us when we're busy and stressed, feeding the children, going to work, important, cleaning the bathroom, that'll have to wait. So things like dementia and sleep. So when we're asleep and we sleep enough, our brain physically, there's something called cerebrospinal fluid in our spine, this liquid in our spine. And when we're asleep, channels open up, and that liquid, that cerebrospinal fluid, physically washes over your brain and washes away amyloid plaques.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally spring cleaning your brain. Now, if you don't sleep enough, your brain goes, no, we have to repair our muscles. We have to produce the right hormones. Spring cleaning the brain, that'll have to wait till we've got enough sleep. So in the short term, that's okay. But if you're not getting enough sleep for a long period of time, that's where dementia risk increases, because dementia is linked to an increase in amyloid plaques in the brain. Basically, your brain hasn't had time to spring clean. So that's where you're getting enough sleep. Yes, you can survive on a little amount of sleep, absolutely. But you're not thriving. You're not really treating your body well. We can all survive on eating absolute junk food, but we know we're not going to be the best. We're going to be doing long-term damage to our body and reducing our lifespan. And that's the crux of getting the right amount of good quality sleep.
Thank you for explaining that in such a beautiful way. What I have observed from working with so many people in organizations and HR directors, in fact, I ask anyone who here, whether you work in a situation where you are responsible for people's wellness, whether you are or you aren't, start having conversations with people about their sleep and be curious about how well people sleep, how long they sleep for. It'll be really interesting what you find out, because it is obviously one of the most important things that we do. We can go without food, we can go without water for days, weeks, but sleep, as we mentioned before, maybe 4 or 5 days, but don't try that at home, because the impact of that is crazy. And, Dr. Lindsay, a lot of the work that I do is around our relationship to the future. Human beings are fascinating because everything we do is governed on our relationship to the future. Everything we do is for outcomes, goals, everything. But what's really interesting, and the science shows us this, that when people think of themselves in the future, not like tonight or tomorrow, most of us know what we're going to be doing tonight or tomorrow, but down the line, 6 months, a year, people don't know who that person is. That person then is a stranger. That's why I think one of the reasons it's hard for us to invest into a future where we don't know the person. And we can start to build a relationship to our future self. And if we don't start prioritizing our sleep, well, you don't really want to find out what's going to happen, because the research around this is it's unequivocal.
Yeah.
And
of course, it's not just the long-term damage. There's the next day. There's the long-term impact on your health that you're investing by sleeping well, but also immediately, if you don't sleep, if you haven't pulled an all-nighter the night before an exam, it's your cognitive performance the next day during that exam. You think, brilliant, I've revised all night, I'll ace this exam, and obviously it's GCSE results day today. Your cognitive performance is as if you've had 2 drinks. And who would take 2 alcoholic drinks and then sit an exam? None of us would. And yet, if you pull an all-nighter of studying, that's the impact direct, and that day you have. If you don't sleep well, you have an increased risk of having a road traffic accident the next day. You're more likely to make risky decisions. The list goes on and on. You're more likely to catch a cold the next day. So, sleep really is something that you're investing in yourself, which means that you're going to be a better person for all those around you. Not sacrificing your sleep because you think you're caring for others is silly, because you're not going to be as effective. You'll probably get sick, then you'd be more of a burden on your family than if you just given yourself the amount of sleep that you needed.
One of the things I did some research on it around, which again wouldn't surprise you, and I don't think it would surprise anybody, but if you went out and you had a few drinks and you didn't go to sleep, the next day, like you said, it's going to be a nightmare. But your self-control really affects willpower. We make really, really poor decisions. And I wonder how many of you listening to this are going, you know what, I want to prioritize my sleep. I want to be a better sleeper. Because look, the thing with lockdown that happened, which human beings, incredibly adjustable. We are amazing, right? How quickly we adjust. So how quickly everyone just adjusted because there was a disaster going on. We had to work at home. And what I have found out, which again won't surprise people, is that people loved that at first. But then it got to the point where people weren't really switching off because there was no downtime. It was literally going from task switching, one task to another, not traveling to and from work. So going from being in a room working into feeding the kids, then putting the kids to bed, then trying to go to sleep, and then dreaming about your emails and the impact that the way we are living is having on our lives, obviously with social media, and it's obvious. But the fact is, if we don't start doing something about it, we're in trouble. And I'd love to know. I'm just looking at some of the questions that we have here, but just in terms of preparing for sleep and having a good night's sleep, can you just give us a few pointers on that, please, Dr. Lindsay?
Sure. So, as you said, if we don't have a wind down time, if we don't have a separation between work and rest, then our brain just can't switch. So if you imagine if you were driving a car and you're in a road rage incident, you're driving a car and someone cuts you up and they're like, and you're like, arr, and then they drive away. No harm done. But how long does it take for your heart to calm down? How long does it take for you to be okay after that? And of course, if we're busy and working and stressed, and we're working in bed on our laptop, replying to those emails, getting everything done, shut the laptop down, right, sleep time. We're trying to be efficient and get everything done, maximize our time. Your brain's still whirring a million miles an hour. And add that to the whole COVID thing. Not only were people, working at all sorts of hours, but they're physically working and living and sleeping in the same place. And then there's that psychological, there's no break. When we go to an office, we're physically making a break. I work over there, I rest and I relax and I have fun here. But if your bedroom is also your office, which is also your gym, because you've got, do some yoga or you've got an exercise bike in the corner, then your bedroom becomes a stressful place. So not only does that wind down time mean we need that time to transition, but also we need to be thinking about physically making a separation. And ideally, and I appreciate we're not all multimillionaires here, ideally have a different room to work in than your bedroom. If you can't, at least have a desk. Don't work in your bed itself.
Yeah.
And a really great tip would be to, before you start work, leave your house, go for a walk around the block, and then come in. So you're making that separation that I'm starting work. And when you finish your work, leave your house, go for a walk around the block, come back in again. You're making that physical separation between work time and not work time. Otherwise, if you're trying to do everything all at once, your brain will just simply not want you to go to sleep because it's trying to be helpful, because it's just thinking, we need to work. So,
It's because I'm not the expert on this area, but it's something I'm so passionate about from my own experience, but from all the people that I've worked with, and just see the massive difference it makes, preparing yourself to sleep. Imagine taking a child and literally putting it in front of the television and watching the news or something devastating, and then just putting it into bed, the child into bed, turning the light off, go to sleep. It's that kind of the slowing down.
And we do that with our children. We give them a bedtime routine. We just do. Bath, milk, story, bed. And, we would never dream of playing chase monster games with our 4-year-old right before bed, because we know we'd wind them up. And yet when we become adults, we'd think, we don't have to do that. We don't have to have a bedtime routine. We can do whatever we want. but we can't really.
Well, I remember when I did my teaching degree in becoming a teacher and looking at child development and learning about rapid eye movement and children before they can actually properly process, they're taking everything in and then they go to sleep and often their eyes are just, they're processing everything they've experienced. And I think we often don't realize that we have to be careful of the information, our inputs, they shape our outputs. I mean, there's so much here. And I know I've got a copy of your book, which is on its way to me, which is Navigating Sleeplessness. And if you want to get that book, guys, go to triggerhub.org. And please understand what TriggerHub is, because it really is a light for people. Because I think the thing about sleep is that it creates a lot of mental health challenges, which will be good to touch around, imbalances, right? And what TriggerHub is all about is providing wisdom from people who have walked these paths, who have helped people. It's more than just a source of information. It's a community that fuels confidence, sparks hope, and is a fast track road to recovery. Because I think a lot of people are seriously burnt out, and people need help. And this is one area that can have the knock-on effect. That was the thing I wanted to ask you. What happens from your experience to people's performance and energy and just well-being when they build a sleep routine and they get better quality sleep?
It's life-changing. I mean, people who, when they come to see me, so insomnia, depression and anxiety are like three best friends. Whenever you get one, you get the other two. So all of my clients who come to see me specifically because they're not sleeping well, they will all be, to some extent, a bit sad and a bit stressed. Because if you're not sleeping well, you're going to be sad about it and you're going to be anxious and stressed. And whichever one of these three things you get, the others get worse. And sleep, there's been a huge improvement in the understanding that mental health is something to take seriously and it shouldn't be something people are ashamed of. But sleep, of those three, is the most easy one for people to go, oh, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, but yeah, I'm not sleeping. And they might seek help for that. But of course, as part of the treatment of sleep, we do touch on the other aspects because they go into each other. As you know, when you experience something traumatic and stressful, your sleep is affected. They all, it's all interlinked. So although, I help people from the point of view as improving their sleep, but once you improve their sleep, you improve the other things as well. Not only are they healthier, happier, getting more stuff done, but their mood is greatly improved as well. So it's a brilliant way of improving someone's mental health just by improving their sleep.
What people think is normal. I find this, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but I'm 53. And one of the things I've seen with a lot of people is they start to think that when they get to a certain age, it's just, this is the way it is. It's all downhill. And I think it's one of the worst myths in the world that really at any age we can start to still make positive changes. We can transform. I think a lot of people just think, well, this is just how I am. This is how much sleep I get. I'm not a good sleeper, and this is how I am in the day, rather than realizing, hang on, it doesn't have to be that way. But most people are going to need help. They're going to need help. And we often have to go and create the environment where people are going to ask for help, because especially in the corporate world, people don't tend to put up their hand, because if they tell you they've got a problem, all of a sudden they might think that they're exposing a weakness to you. We have to create the environments in the culture where people can openly express what is going on for them. Yeah. There's a few other things that would be really good to discuss with you. What's the difference between deep sleep and REM sleep?
Sure. So when we fall asleep, we have three main parts of sleep. We have light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, or REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. So most people would have heard of deep sleep and REM sleep, but light sleep is for some reason perceived as bad sleep. And all the time I get calls, Dr. Brownie, can you help me? My Fitbit, my generic sleep tracker, tells me that I'm only getting 20% of the night in deep sleep, and I need the full night in the good quality deep sleep, and I'm getting half the night in this rubbish light sleep. To which I tell them, that's completely normal. Like, light sleep is not bad sleep. It is actually, for a healthy, the most perfect healthy 21-year-old sleep, which is pretty much when our sleep is perfect, and I'm Thank you for not asking how old I am, but I'm significantly older than 21. When we were 21, we would spend 55% of the night in light sleep. Light sleep isn't bad sleep. And about 20% of the night in deep sleep, and about 23% of the night in REM sleep, REM sleep. Now think about sleep like a plate of food. Deep sleep is like broccoli. Broccoli definitely is really good for you, for sure. But what if you only ate broccoli? If every meal, 3 meals a day, entirely just broccoli, you would be incredibly unhealthy. And that's what deep sleep is like. Yes, it's really good for you. It's a superfood. It's really great. But you need the other parts too. You need the deep sleep, the REM sleep, and the light sleep. Just like in a plate of food, you need protein, carbohydrate, and all the different kinds of vegetables. So if people start to obsess about the different parts of sleep, it can be quite unhelpful unless they know how much they should be getting. And if they are under this misunderstanding that deep sleep is the good bit and the other bits are bad, that's really unhelpful. So yeah, they have different roles. So deep sleep is when our body sort of physically repairs and we produce growth hormone. REM sleep is when we tend to dream. And dreaming sleep, it's called REM, as you know, because you have your eyes move rapidly beneath your eyelids. So you can see if someone's in REM sleep because their eyes will be closed, but you're able to physically see the eyeball moving quickly from side to side under their eyelid. And they'll probably potentially be dreaming at that point, because that's when we tend to dream in that sleep. And dreaming sleep is when our brain processes what's going on in our lives. And if we've been through something emotional, traumatic, difficult, or we're learning something new, anything new to us or emotionally challenging, our brains process that during our dreaming sleep. And people think dreaming sleep is bad, but it's not. It's our overnight therapy.
With that, when you're talking about it, it just makes me again appreciate if people are learning something or working on something, doing something creative, just allowing time for that to process when we're sleeping. Because that's what we are designed. We are designed to sleep, whether we like it or not. And everything can change by improving your sleep. Look, we're coming close to the end of this webinar. I would encourage everyone to make sure you are following Dr. Lindsay, and we'll give out the handle for people to go and find you, because you're on Threads, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook. And I would really encourage everyone to follow you. Not literally follow you, that would be quite weird, but also, and wrong, but also to get your book, because I'm looking forward to reading it. I think it's one of those things we can work to improve upon. But there's just a couple more things. And if you've got any questions, please, everyone, feel free to put them in the chat. I want to ask you, this is one of the questions I had for you about how good sleep can improve emotional intelligence and social connections. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sure. So when we're asleep, like I said before, our body is physically repairing itself, but also we are processing and preparing for dealing with the next day. And we've already touched on a few of those issues, like we are much more likely to make risky decisions if we've not slept well. We are more likely to have not as much resilience. So we're not as able to cope with bad things happening the next day. And of course, therefore, if you're not able to process things very quickly because you've not slept well, you're not able to read people, you're not able to have that resilience to get over a difficult conversation with somebody, then your emotional intelligence, your ability to cope and get on with people will be impaired if you're not sleeping well. And then what happens? Well, you've had an argument with someone that happened because you didn't react very well to it because you hadn't slept well. Then you start mulling over it, dwelling on it, worrying about it at night time. Then you don't sleep very well because you're thinking about the bad day you just had. And it becomes this vicious cycle. So it kind of perpetuates itself. So if we prioritize getting some good quality sleep, we're going to feel so much better. We're going to be sharper. We're going to be healthier. We're going to be able to deal with life and everything it challenges us with. Get on with people, be happier, be more positive, be more resilient. And, it's an upward spiral rather than a downward spiral.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for everything you've shared. And in a moment, if there's anything else that you want to share or you want people to know, But I think the last thing I'd like to touch upon is about the preparation for sleep, and some tips around the best ways for people to get a good night's sleep.
Brilliant. So basically, when we try to sleep, we tend to break it. That's the reality of it. Like, the more you try to do something, you're lying in bed and you try, I need to sleep well tonight because tomorrow I've got a really important presentation, or I've got, a really big party tomorrow with my family and I want to be my best, or I want to look my best. So I need to sleep quickly. And that pressure you're putting on yourself breaks it. So the best preparation for sleep is just to be calm and relaxed. Because the more stressed and anxious you are about how important you need to sleep, then that stress and anxiety is going to make you not sleep. So, so being calm, and calmness starts during the day. There's no point having a stressed out day and then thinking, oh, well, I'll just do a quick, 2-minute calming down meditation and that should suffice. No, because if your cortisol, your adrenaline, if you're stressed out throughout the day, you can't just flip a switch like that. So think about what you're doing during the day. Exercise. It's fantastic for our physical health. We know that. It's fantastic for our mental health, and it's fantastic for our sleep. So have a look at if you're exercising during the day. And then when it comes to bedtime, yes, that's where that prep comes. That's a wind down time. And screens, we know that it's not good for sleep for two main reasons. It's the light, the brightness of the light significantly disrupts our ability to produce melatonin, which is our sleep promoting hormone. And, we think about when we were cavemen, we didn't have to worry about this because we didn't have electricity. And during the day, sunshine, light, we're awake. During the night, no sunshine, dark, we're asleep. Brilliant. But what if you're watching this on catch up in bed on your device? Well, it's nighttime and you're giving yourself lots of bright light. But not only that, if you're watching it on a device this close to your face, that's a lot of bright light right into your brain. So try to avoid bright screens, bright light quite close to bedtime, and do something that's going to help you relax. Not because relaxing is going to force sleep, but just because we're more likely to sleep when we're relaxed. That's all we can do. All we can do is to create an environment in which sleep is likely to happen and see if it does. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, okay, clearly I wasn't meant to sleep right now, and maybe take a break. Because there's no point lying in bed trying to force sleep to happen. You're just making it worse. You're getting more frustrated, more anxious, more annoyed. It's not helpful. So it's about creating an environment when you're feeling calm and relaxed. So, have a nice bedroom, tidy it up. Don't go to bed with piles of laundry next to you or work that hasn't been finished. Have a nice calming environment. Do something nice and calming before bed. Lie down, see if sleep happens. And if it doesn't, and you've been lying there for a while and you're not sleeping, just cut yourself some slack, go and have a break, go downstairs, make a cup of decaf tea, read a book for a little while, and then try again. Because just by staying in bed trying to force sleep for hours, that's what causes really bad insomnia. That makes it so much worse.
I really like that piece of advice. I heard someone else say that, and I've done that a couple of times, just woken up and realized I've woken when my body then becomes awake because I'm thinking, I've got up, I've done like what you've said, and I've done that for a bit, and then I've gone back to sleep. I really do appreciate, the work that you do. I remember reading about Steve Jobs, and he said that, he wouldn't let his children have iPads because he even knew that whole scrolling business would overstimulate. We're overstimulated. And it's not a surprise that lots of people are having problems sleeping. There are a few questions here. And the question from Anna here, you might want to read that. But Anna, this is something, I don't know whether you've worked with a sleep expert, but I would really encourage you to connect with someone like or Dr. Lindsay, because, this is really important. And you've obviously already taken some action around that. I don't know whether you wanted to comment on that, but while you were looking at it, there's a couple of other questions here, and we do need to finish fairly soon. What causes someone to feel more productive in the evening? You talked about owls and larks.
Absolutely. So we have our circadian rhythm, means that our bodies naturally feel awake during the day and sleepy at night. And our circadian rhythm controls a whole load of things. But it's not just so black and white. It has degrees to it. So you might have heard of your chronotype, meaning that some people are more evening types, which we also call owls, and some people are more morning types, which are kind of called larks. And morning type people are the people who wake up to their alarm and they're bright and ready to go and they're on it. And then come the evening, they're done. They want to go to bed early. Going out to a late night party till 2 a.m. sounds like absolute hell. Other people, owls, when that alarm goes off in the morning, they are not happy. They do not want to get out of bed. It's not fun. They'll make it through the morning, maybe with a lot of caffeine, but come the evening, they're on fire. They're at the computer, they're working. They don't want to stop. They don't want to go to bed. So some people, if you cause someone to feel more productive in the evening, it's likely that you're an owl, an evening type. And you can tweak it by when you have light exposure. There are ways of sort of tweaking when you're feeling your most productive. But the other thing to think about is just to go with your innate type. So me, for example, as I shared with you, Pete, earlier, I'm a massive owl. So my natural tendency is I am not a morning person. I am not someone who, when the alarm goes off, is like, brilliant. I'm an evening person, and I get more and more productive and more engaged as the night goes on. But I have to remind myself to go to bed, because otherwise I'd stay up until 2, 3. But of course, the kids still have to go to school in the morning. So, it's about working with your chronotype. And if you're a later person, then don't schedule difficult meetings for 9 a.m. because if you're not going to be your best, then that's not going to be great for you. Then try and schedule the easy things that you need to do earlier in the day and the more complex tasks later. If you're a lark, the opposite. Get those difficult tasks in your calendar first thing in the morning. If someone wants to meet you for breakfast, brilliant, great. But then towards the end of the day, that's when you should do all those mundane things that are easier, because you're not really your best then. So that's answering that question, really.
Well, there's so much more that we could touch upon, but we're going to have to wrap this up. And first off, I want to thank you once again for the work that you do, the book that you've written. I would really encourage people to connect with you. I'm connected to you on Instagram. I'm going to be posting something on there in a moment. There's a lot more that we could have discussed, and maybe we'll do another. I think we should do, if you want us to do another Trigger Hub talk on this subject, I'm sure we can do that, because this is really so important. Remember Dr. Lindsay's book, Navigating Sleeplessness. You can get that at triggerhub.org. Just once again, I want to highlight, TriggerHub, because they have made this happen, and I've been working with them now for some time, and hugely impressed with what they are doing. Real pioneers in this field of wellness and mental health. It's uniquely designed to revolutionize mental health and recovery and well-being, support for the workplace, students, and the next generation of leaders, harness the power of bibliotherapy, offering a beacon of hope for those navigating the challenging terrain that we now find ourselves in. In TriggerHub, you'll find a treasure trove of insights and wisdom for those who've journeyed on the same path. It's more than a resource. It's a community that fosters confidence and kindness, hope, and significantly, and I'm going to say this again, significantly accelerates the journey towards recovery. But don't just take my word for it. Honestly, just go and see for yourself. If you want any help or support in getting involved, just ask and join us today. Let's shorten that journey of people needing help, and getting better, and brighten the path and empower recovery. Start your Trigger Hub journey today. Dr. Lindsay, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Thank you for your time today. It's been really insightful, and I know this could have gone on for days.
No worries.
Is there anything you want to add?
Anyone in the chat or anyone watching who has a question for me, or I see there's some in the chat we haven't got to, just send me a message afterwards. I'm really happy to answer any of your sleep questions. Just pop me an email or DM me on any social media, and I'm always happy to answer any sleep questions at any point. So just reach out to me and I'll answer those then.
Thank you. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn as well, please share this. Let other people see this. This is something that people genuinely need to hear, because once people start hearing more and more of these conversations, They'll start to realize, you know what, I'm not alone, and it's okay, and it's normal. But the fact is that you can do something about this. You don't have to accept.
And in corporations, they're giving a well-being talk about sleep is just such a fantastic thing to do, because you can give people so much practical advice in that session that they go away and they'll be healthier. People who sleep for less than 6 hours a night tend to take an additional 6 days off work sick a year compared to people who sleep 7 to 9 hours. So, if you're an employee, run a sleep session, because you're going to reduce those sick days if you improve people's sleep.
So get Dr. Lindsay into your organization, because that will also create the culture where people will start openly talking about this. We can't hide from this. We have to accept the reality of where we are, accept the reality of how we're feeling, because if we don't do that, nothing's going to change. You can see in the chat here, troublesleeping.co.uk. But for now, thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay. We can work better when we make our health, our mental, our physical, our emotional health a priority. So whatever you're doing, enjoy the rest of your day and have a good night's sleep. We'll see you next time.
Bye.